Yeah.
Did you know about the overall of tender report?
The report is basically tell about tender who want to be a tender. So the report is divided to three stage. Also we have a factor, and the last one is a failure section. If you want more detail about this question, so this is the answer. Tender report basically tell about the tenderer who want to win a tender either in government sector or not. In this tender report, it tells the preparation process which is divided in three sections. First, evaluation stage. More about the basic stage that the tenderer should have to win any tender. The tenderer must follow this order to go to the next stage. The first one is a tender perfection. Second is adequacy of the document. Third is a satisfactory financial position. And the last, satisfactory current job performance. The second evaluation stage only made a several tenderers who passed assessment at the first stage. Criteria to determine more profitable tender to be taken into consideration. First is a tender price. Second is experience. Third is current work performance. Fourth is technical staff, and the last one is plant and equipment. The third evaluation stage, number and working experience of technical staff compared with estimate minimum requirement. The first one is a complete total work value for past years. The second is the largest work value done in past 5 years. And the last one is a type of work is limited to recognized work comparable or similar. Then the factor in selection of tenderer in tender report, which is the contractor must follow that start. Number one is a reasonable price. Number two is working experience. Number three is a background of the company. Number four is a financial record. Number five is a administration and technical staff. Number six is machinery and plan. Number seven is current project record. Number 8 is tender perfection, and the last one is a reasonable date of completion. Next, the failure factor in tender participant. In this situation, it tells about why the contractor failed to participate in that tender. There are a few points why it happened. Number one is the price tender is too high. Number two is lower tender price may cause loss of work will not be executed perfectly. Government shall not be bound to accept the tender lowest or any tender. Number three is works on that may carry out at the time too much and had exceed limit registration finances. Number four is the past works record unsavory and satisfying. Number six is Number five is not complete any tender condition. Number six is the detail of tender is unfilled properly. And the last one is there are not enough financial allocation for each project.
Okay, now I want to explain you about a QS tender report. There are four stages about a tender report of QS. The last stage, uh, at it have two 12 detail. I want to explain it.
These are stage of QS roles to prepare a tender document. A. QS must give report to architect and client on scrutiny up tender complete for enable client choose tender suitably. B. QS must focus attention on the matter importantly and ignore matter minor as detailed arithmetic error need to be ignored. C. The report form is different depend to the nature document tender. D. These are the following detail includes in tender report. 1. Detail project. 2. The way evident invite tender, set date of tender invite and close and state tender running time and 2. Tender list, including tender price and completion time that the proposed by tender. 4. List of tender mistake were included in the document tender. 5. List completion time work according to lowest tender price before. 6. Study from mistake. 7. In the latest tender price, the tenderer need to be state including mistake which occur if B. 9. Show the department estimate and difference between each tender. 10. Contract background such as name of the company, contractor class and project list that had and while being implemented. Next, the proposal and support to tender board to accept eligible contract after matter above analysis and look into. must submit to the QS cost estimate and difference with tenderer, the tenderer background and project list which has been and still under construction, and last, the QS will submit tenderer proposal those eligible for at agree, receive and certified by the tender board.
Bear, can you justify me the evaluation of tender report?
The evaluation stage have three. First stage is more about the basic stage that tenderer should have win any tender. The tenderer must follow this order to go to the next stage. Second stage only made of several tenderer who have passed assessment at the first stage. Criteria to determine if on tenderer on profitable tenderer into a considerable. Third stage is about a number and working experience technical staff with compare estimate minimum and requirement.
First, tender perfection. Second, adequacy of the document. Third, satisfactory financial position. And satisfactory current job performance. First, tender price. Second, experience. Third, current work performance. Fourth, technical staff. And 5, plant and equipment. Complete total work value for 5 years. Second, largest work value done in past 5 years. And lastly, third, type of work is limited to recognized work comparable or similar.
But can you give me a criteria of selection tender report and explain it?
It's easy. So basically, it have 9 of criteria of selection tenders, which is the first one is reasonable price, second is working experience, background of the company, financial records, administration and technical staff, machinery plans, current project record, then the perfection, and lastly is a reasonable date of completion. For the explanation, this is the answer. These are following of criteria of selection tenderer to handle projects. First, reasonable price. The good price is not necessarily the lowest price. This mistaken that almost of the contractors do, which is, if lower price, then it help him to bear selected, whereas stated the price under actual cost stated project. This situation make possible project will face a problem. Second, working experience. The tenderer who has extensive experience in the same field with the proposed work has the advantages which compared with an inexperienced tenderer. However, the contractors are not experienced in the same field but never completed similar work in construction, and the price is also included. Third, background of the company. The contractor who has a good background and clean is considered to be selected. It can be found by referring to the records of their work in the past. It is important to enable project to being projected to get going well. Fourth, financial record. People say no money, no talk. Not the contractor, the selection contractor. The contractor who adequate financial, which is 5% from the tenderer, also has the advantage to be considered. Next, administration and technical staff. All contractors have enough staff, especially the technical staff. It is because the technical staff have better capabilities than the contractor indicated. Other than that, machinery and plant. This is also considered as the contractor has adequate plant and machinery is certainly not a problem in the rent. Next, current project record. The tenderer have too many projects on hand that must completing all work properly incurred. To avoid any inconvenience to something project, Only a tenderer that really have a big commitment to complete something project would be picked. Plus, tender perfection. Tenders that have imperfection may result in a binding contract can be sure existed. The QS or the quantity surveying must check the tender document which tender form is not signed, the finished work is not mentioned, and others mentioned in the tender report. Lastly, reasonable date of completion. The quantity surveyor have to consider comparative advantage of different gestation period. Hence, the effect of the completion of the final price due to price adjustment contract should also be considered.
Then can you give me a category of tender rejected and explain it?
There are 7 points of categories of the tender rejected with the reason, and basically there are 7 ways on how to overcome the mistaken and make all the tender is not rejected again by the government. The detail is
There are some categories of tender rejected with the reason. First, the price of tender is too high and expensive. Second, the tender price is too cheap and low. It will cause loss or the work may not to be executed perfectly. The government should not to be bound to accept any tender. Third, those work on hand carried out at that time too much and had exceeded limit registration finance. Fourth, the past work record were unsavory and satisfying. Fifth, the tender is not comply to any tender terms and conditions. Tender details unfilled properly and perfectly. Seventh, some of tender are not enough financial allocation for each project. There are a few ways on how to overcome the mistaken and make the tender is not rejected again. First, the tenderer should fill up the information in the summary of the complete scope of work with no errors. Second, should check correctly and completely states the price of tender. Third, the tenderer must put the information about background of the contractor completely, which is the contractor must list the company name, class of contractor and the project list. Fourth, tender form must be signed and should have a copy of company stamp. Fifth, the tenderer must write the address of the employer or client or developer in front of the envelope sealed. Sixth, last but not least, every tenderer must use black ink pen when fill up the bid forms.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. shadow turns to sun rays, and on